You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, and gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. You can read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.boston.org/MPO_NON_DISCRIMINATION. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Abby Katrums-Harima of the MPO staff at acutrumbes@ctps.org or 857-702-3682 or via the chat box. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. Please raise your hand. Please raise your hand via Zoom if you would like to use an AI note taker during this meeting. If you are on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. Good morning, everybody. My name is David Moeller. I represent Secretary Monica Tibbetts-Nutt here. Please call the roll.
Absolutely. Dennis's hand was raised earlier. Not sure if that was for the note taker, but I will call Mascot seat 1.
This is David Moeller.
You, Mascot seat 2.
Good morning, John Bashad, representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver, present.
Good morning, thank you. Mascot Highway Division.
John Romano, Mascot Highway Division here.
Hi, John. MBTA.
Good morning. This is Laura Gilmore, representing General Manager Phil Eng in the MBTA.
Welcome. Regional Transportation Authorities Metro West Transit Authority.
Yes, good morning. This is Tyler Trossi, representing Administrator Jimmy for the MWRTA, present.
Good morning, Tyler. Massport.
Good morning. This is Sarah Lee, representing Massport.
Hi, Sarah. MAPC.
Good morning, Eric Barassa with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Hi, Eric. Next, we'd like to call upon the MBTA Advisory Board.
Good morning, Isabella McKinnon with the MBTA Advisory Board, representing Hannah Swidakowski, who will be joining shortly.
Welcome, thank you. Advisory Council.
Leonard Danes Advisory Council here, and I may have to drop out maybe for 10 to 15 minutes. So you call the roll and I don't answer, that's what's happened. All right, thank you.
Roger that. Thank you, Len. City of Boston, seat 1.
Morning, this is Jen Rowe with the City of Boston, representing Mayor Michelle Wu.
Good morning, Jen. City of Boston, seat 2.
Morning, everyone. This is Matt Moran, City of Boston, seat 2, representing Mayor Wu.
Welcome. At-large City of Everett.
Good morning, Jay Monty, representing Mayor DeMaria and the City of Everett.
Good morning. At-large City of Newton.
Good morning, David Kozas, representing Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller in the City of Newton.
Good morning. At-large Town of Arlington. Next is At-large Town of Brookline.
Morning, everyone. Amy Ingalls, representing Bernard Green, chair board member and chair member of the Select Board, for the Town of Brookline.
Thank you. Welcome, Amy. Intercore Committee, City of Somerville.
Hi, good morning. Tom Bent, City of Somerville, representing Mayor Valentine in the Intercore.
Morning, Tom. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Good morning, Nathaniel Ryan, alternate for the Magic Subregion, representing Acton Select Board Member Fran Arsenal.
Welcome, Nate. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham.
Dennis Ciambetti, representing Metro West and Mayor Charles Diskey.
Hello, Dennis. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Hi. This is Darlene Wynn. Aaron, I don't need you yet, but sorry. Darlene Wynn here from Beverly, representing the North Shore Task Force, and Mayor Cahill. And Aaron's gonna pop in. I have to step out from 11 to 11:30, so Aaron will cover from then. Thanks.
Noted, and thank you. Thank you both. North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington.
Good morning. This is John Strauss, representing Mike Caspeo, Chairman of the Select Board of the Town of Burlington and North Shore Planning Council.
Roger, and good morning, John. South Shore Coalition, Town of Hull. Not see Chris. Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham.
Rachel Benson, Director of Planning and Economic Development in Rentham for SWAP.
Rachel. And then Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood.
Hi, good morning. This is Steve Olenoff, representing the Trick Subregion.
Steve. Do we have the Federal Highway Administration? The Federal Transit Administration? This calls the roll, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I will note for the record that in the chat, we do have someone using an AI note taker. Next item is the chair's report. I don't have one, so we'll go directly to Megan and the executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David, welcome everybody. It may or may not be obvious, but I am calling in from a different remote location. I'm actually at a state remote because I've been attending the MPO Board of Directors retreat over this past week. So I thought that first, before I get into my agenda, I could just highlight some of the topics or themes that we've been discussing this week. As a reminder, MPO is the National Association for MPOs, and in my role as Executive Director of the Boston Region MPO, I've been participating as a board member in my second term. And so it's been a really interesting time to be a part of that board and to be a part of a group of MPO leadership across the country. One of the topics that is very much present and on everybody's mind right now is communicating and ensuring people understand the role of MPOs, especially in the context of upcoming transportation reauthorization. So there's been a lot of work to really clarify that MPOs have a role in ensuring that there's effective or efficient delivery of federal transportation dollars when inclined towards local and regional priorities. So that MPOs are a really essential part of that funding process. We also talked a bit about the increasing membership with AMPO, which we think is at least partly driven by some of the new resources that AMPO has been offering, especially in the context of our fast-paced change that's happening with the current federal administration. So for example, they've released a litigation tracker to help keep track of the way all the different litigations are progressing. We are a member, and so contact me, please, if you'd like to learn more about any of those resources or try to access any of those resources. I'm happy to try to set up board members with any sort of access to those. We also talked quite a bit about the expansion of the AMPO's MPO Institute, which is a resource that is growing and expanding for training a variety of stakeholders about MPOs. So they can be targeted at professionals, students, and board members. And so they're really working to increase not only just those of us who work in the MPO space, but those who might not yet know much about the MPO space as to what MPOs do and why. We also talked a bit about, there's an exciting upcoming opportunity that's being co-sponsored by AMPO and AASHTO, so the state organization and the regional organizations, for a DT MPO peer exchange, to which we at Boston have been invited. So I'm hoping we'll be able to attend that opportunity as well. And then another really interesting topic that's come up is that there's been a growing increase across the country provide a kind of a special forum focused on DOT liaisons that work with MPOs and providing them a space to get together and talk about common challenges and learn from each other's experience. So I think that could be a very exciting next step for AMPO. And then lastly, we talked quite a bit about the upcoming annual conference being held in Providence, Rhode Island. I wanted the board to know we are sending a relatively large contingent of MPO staff, Boston Region MPO staff, to this particular conference, which is really enabled due to the fact that we don't have to pay to fly. So there's much lower cost of travel to be able to send more folks from these really central annual meetings that AMPO hosts. So with that, I will move on to next slide, please. My usual report agenda. In terms of announcements, next slide, please. I just wanted to remind folks it's on the agenda, but we will be ending today's board meeting with an executive session. So the information about that has been shared. It's on the agenda. So as we approach that item on the agenda, we will ask for folks who are not part of the board to exit the meeting. We will vote to go into executive session. And then at the end of that, we'll vote to adjourn the meeting and end the meeting for everyone. So I hope you're able to stick around. And then the other announcement I wanted to make is that this meeting will be the last one where our representative from the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, Len Diggins, is in attendance in his role. If you'll recall, we sunsetted the Regional Transportation Advisory Council a few months ago, but Len has been continuing to represent the interests of that group and serve on this board in the interim period while we've been sort of planning for the formation and launching of a new group. In all, I believe, Len, you've been on this board in your role for about 5 years. And so I just wanted to say a couple quick words that in my mind, Len has really brought an energy and attention to detail to the Regional Transportation Advisory Council that I think was probably previously unfilled. And I say that given that I was the prior chair serving RTAC. And so I feel like I can say that with some authority that I really respect what he's been able to bring on his own to that group and to this board. So I admire Len's commitment to digging into the technical aspects of the MPO process and how Len asks really thoughtful questions all the time about our work in the region. So I just wanted to say thank you, Len, for all that you've contributed to this MPO over the past 5 years, and also say that I really enjoyed working with you, and I hope that we continue to work together, particularly because you are someone who I know cares deeply about and understands the MPO processes. So even in the next iteration, I hope we'll form a new and continuing relationship. All right, next slide, please. So that'll transition us into the engagement update, which is about the new Community Advisory Council. Next slide, please. So the membership of the new Community Advisory Council is in the process right now of being finalized with the intent to launch the group next month. So just to sort of recap that we've developed a process to select membership for approximately 50 applications that we received and previously reported on. And that included a wide range of stakeholders, community-based organizations, advocates, municipal representatives, professional associations, and members of the general public. And that process to ensure we have diversification has been to work on prioritizing a range of perspectives that applicants would bring to the group. That could be on the types of issues and priorities that they invest their time in, the demographics and lived experiences of the representatives, the constituencies that they serve, and the change models that they adopt, and the size, scale, and geography of those entities. And the idea is to ensure that the membership includes and elevates perspectives of a wide variety of communities and constituencies, particularly those not really well represented in the MPO decision-making specifically. As a reminder, we are still encouraging you to share the application with any stakeholders who represent the sort of the South and Southwest communities, particularly in the South Shore Coalition, TRIC, SWAP subregions. So please, while we are finalizing the initial membership now, we expect the group to potentially expand, certainly evolve, and will accept applications on a rolling basis. So we would love to see some representation coming in from those communities. Next slide, please. So during July and August, as the group onboards and selections for the new Advisory Council chair and vice chair, there will not be an Advisory Council representative attending board meetings. So just for a few months, we will keep the board updated on the formation of this group and what the initial meetings are looking like. And we expect that a newly elected Advisory Council chair will join this board in September. But we will be giving you a more detailed update on the membership, the progress we're making, and the timing at the next MPO meeting on July 17th. Next slide, please. I'm actually going to skip staffing updates for today, but by the time of the next meeting, I'll be able to announce 2 new colleagues and a changed position of one of our colleagues as well. So I'll leave that for the next meeting. Next slide. And then next slide one more time. So because there's been a preliminary injunction granted in the case of the multi-state lawsuit on the federal language being included in terms and conditions, despite previous announcements that we wouldn't be signing contracts with that language, we've actually been able to move forward for the time being with some federal opportunities. So on that note, we just submitted our federal fiscal year 2025 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application, which has a requested amount of $5 million for a project we are calling Safety Forward, accelerating road safety and innovation in the Boston region. And the idea that it would build on our safety work that we've done so far through 4 integrated strategies, developing a framework that'll integrate behavioral psychology with urban analytics, better understand perceived safety for people walking and biking, applying the IRAP safety star ratings, you'll hear a little bit about that today, to prioritize corridor improvements, enhancing child safety through education and school zone assessments, and supporting quick build demonstration projects with our municipal partners. So we anticipate awards to be announced sometime this winter, and we will share updates with the board as we get closer to it. Next slide, please. And one more. So for today's agenda, we will first have, well, in terms of the core items on the agenda, we will have a work scope that we'll bring to you, the board, to consider approving about the MBTA's 2026 Triennial Title VI program. This is something the MBTA is required to do every 3 years, and MPO staff have been assisting the T with that work for many years. So this scope represents a continuation of that support to the T. And then we will also be bringing to you a recommendation to consider approving the proposed operating budget. Because the chair of the A&F committee, Brian Kane, was not available today, Eric Barassa will actually be presenting the proposed state fiscal year 2026 budget for the Boston MPO staff. It's been recommended by the A&F committee back in May and for the board to vote to approve. So we'll bring that forward. Then we have an amendment, Federal Fiscal Year 25 to 29 Amendment 12, TIP Amendment 12. And that includes cost and funding source changes to 3 bridge projects in the state highway program and 4 projects in the transit program for Cape Ann Transit Authority. Those are all for FFY 2025. And then we will have probably the lengthiest item on our agenda will be a Vision Zero action plan update and an ask to consider releasing the draft plan for public comment. This has been all posted online, the draft action plan and all the technical appendices. And today we will give you some presentation because we've been moving quickly through this process on the engagement analysis work that's been going on since the last time we spoke to you about it, and an overview of the actions that are in this draft plan. The final virtual public forum is also tonight for this Vision Zero process. It's at 6 p.m. So we invite you to attend, and please, if you can, help us spread the word. The link is on the Vision Zero website, and I'm sure we could probably post it in the chat for you to also directly link to it. And we'll have a quarterly engagement update on the themes and trends and public comments collected through our engagement activities over the last few months. That will include analysis from a recently launched digital engagement platform focused on the long-range plan. I hope many of you have seen that and participated in it. And we'll also introduce you to a new public engagement dashboard that displays data analyses from this and previous engagement updates. And then we will end the meeting, as I already mentioned, with an executive session. And that will be it for today. Next slide, please. And then the next meeting, please note that we will not have a meeting on July 3rd, which is the first Thursday of the month, just due to the holiday week. And our next meeting will be on July 17th. And I hope to see you then. So thanks, David. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tegan. Questions for Tegan? Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Executive Director. So I just want to say, to my pleasant surprise, John Alessi has asked me to be the formal substitute for Arlington. Normally, that's all handled through our planning department, so I fully expected, that it would just remain all in the planning department. So we're just in the process of formalizing that request. I'll be back. And so that saves me from having to say, goodbye. But I do appreciate all the accolades I've seen, in the chat. And I hope you still feel that way when you see me later on. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks for the good news, Lynn. Other questions? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any? Brad Rawson.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. Sound check, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Chair, appreciate it. I wanted to thank MPO staff as well as my fellow members of the task force who worked on the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan. I would ask everybody to avoid the temptation to multitask too heavily during the technical presentation today. There's a bunch of really important work that will inform work at the municipal level, at the state agency level, at the grassroots and community-based organization level as we all move Massachusetts toward a safer future. And I want to make sure that folks know that Vision Zero is not just an urban and inner core thing. The staff have worked really, really effectively to make sure that we've got context-specific solutions for all types of Massachusetts communities across this region. So shout out to the great staff. The second thing I'd like to say, Chair, is I really appreciate the Executive Director's report reminding us all about our regional and statewide and national professional associations like AMPO, like ASHTO. I would add NACDO to that list. Folks, we're at a very, very turbulent moment in the federal environment, but the solidarity that we achieve from peer-based learning and sharing, like the conferences that Tegan mentioned that our staff will be going to, is a really important way to share knowledge and get through these turbulent times. So I really appreciate the hard work of everybody connecting with their peers, with national MPOs, with ASHTO, with APTA, with NACDO, and many, many others. So thanks again. Let's keep up the great work.
Thank you, Brett. Any other comments from the public at this time? Seeing and hearing none. Next item on the agenda is committee chairs reports. Are there? Jay Monty.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Just want to give an update. The Congestion Management Committee met on June 12th, and we had a presentation from Joe Delorto and Rose McCarron working on the roadway pricing study. That study was funded through the MPO this past fiscal year. So they'll be continuing their work, and we'll be looking forward to further updates from them in the coming months.
Thank you. Any questions for Jay? Seeing none. Jen Rowe.
Thank you.
Jen, you're muted for some reason. You weren't, and then you were.
Very odd. Okay, how's this?
That's good. Thank you.
So the TIP Process Engagement Readiness Committee met 2 weeks ago, June 12th. We continued a debrief of this year's TIP development process informed by a survey of MPO members. So thank you for everyone who took that survey. I'll put a link in the chat in a sec with the results. And I'm going to focus a little bit on some high-level conclusions. First, members celebrated a couple of clear positive trends. We had many high-scoring projects to choose from, and also overall, we funded fewer unscored projects than we have in past years. Members also identified a few areas of improvement, the most severe of which was our inability to fund many new projects, particularly in the outer years. Of course, that was interconnected with two other issues that came up. And that will surprise no one, project delays and cost increases. So we'll, TIP committee will continue its work to address those areas of improvement. And another item that came up, received a lot of discussion, was the role of the committee in TIP development. The committee recommended that the full board take this up as a topic at a future full board meeting. And the final two items on the agenda were staff giving us a first look at a couple draft proposals, one for readiness guidelines, and the second was for project rescoring. Those conversations are ones that will continue at our next meeting. It'll be July 24th, about a month from now. We'll continue the conversation on those two items before we ultimately bring them to the board for the full board discussion. Until that time, Ethan and Adriana have generously offered to meet with any MPO member who would like to discuss those proposals during their TIP office hours. I'll put a link to that in the chat also. And I'm also, as always, happy to take questions either now or offline, and I'll put my contact info in the chat. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions for Jen? Seeing none, Chris Clem.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. This is Chris Clem from MassDOT's Planning Office. I want to let members and folks know that the UPWP Committee is planning to meet on Thursday, July 10th at 1 p.m. At that meeting, we're expected to review comments received during the public review period on the draft fiscal year 2026 UPWP and staff's response and the ways in which they've incorporated any comments they received during the formal public comment period. We will also hear and consider 2 actions on the fiscal year 2025 UPWP. One of those is a more regular amendment that's taken care of around this time each year to change the budget based on the way some programs have progressed throughout the current fiscal year. And the other one is an administrative modification that's a little bit more minor in nature. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 1st. Can we get a motion in a second to approve the minutes? And please state your name for the record when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa with MAPC. I'll make a motion to approve the May 1st meeting minutes.
Is there a second? Tom Bent.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
David Muller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Laura Gilmore,
Yes.
Tyler Terrassi,
Tyler Terrassi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Isabella McKinnon,
Isabella McKinnon, yes.
Glenn Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Amy Ingalls,
Amy Ingalls abstain as I was not present.
abstain. Yes, I'm recording that. Thank you. Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Nate Ryan,
Nate Ryan abstaining, was not present.
Roger. Thank you. Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Schimbedi, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson abstain?
thank you. Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a work scope for the MBTA 2026 Triennial Title VI program. Bradley Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present work scope for MBTA 2026 Triennial Title VI program. MPO staff have been assisting the MBTA with their Title VI compliance work for many years, and this scope represents a continuation of that work. Budget is $165,000, and the MBTA will pay for this work. Every 3 years, the MBTA is required to submit a program to the Federal Transit Administration detailing the MBTA's efforts to comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The purpose of the Title VI program is to ensure that the MBTA provides a comparable level and quality of transportation services to all customers without regard to race, color, or national origin. MPO staff completed the MBTA's most recent Triennial Title VI program in 2023. The Title VI program is comprehensive documentation of the MBTA's Title VI activities over the preceding 3 years. Some components of this program include an analysis of MBTA service monitoring data, such as vehicle load, on-time performance, and the distribution of transit amenities. These data will be analyzed for any potential disparate impacts on minority riders, and if any potential disparities are identified, MPO staff would work with the MBTA to determine why a disparity exists and to assist in developing potential corrective actions to remedy the disparity to the extent possible. Another component of this program is maps of the MBTA service area, showing where predominantly minority and low-income populations reside in relation to MBTA services and MBTA facilities. The program also includes service and fare equity analyses that have been completed in the past 3 years. For example, the MBTA's low-income fares from 2024. And the program would also include material provided by the MBTA, such as their public participation plan and their service delivery policy. As part of this project, MPO staff would compile all this material into a final program to submit to the MBTA in March 2026. Again, MPO staff have been assisting the MBTA with their Title VI work for many years, and the scope represents a continuation of that work. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley. Any questions for Bradley? Lynn Diggins.
Thank you, Chair. So, for you to Ms. Putnam, I mean, this, what you described seems similar, if not identical, to the last time you did this, correct?
Yes.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve the work scope as presented today? Please state your name for the record. Lynn Diggins.
Leonard Diggins, Advisory Council, I make a motion to approve this work scope.
Thank you. Laura Gilmore.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
Laura Gilmore. I'm
Yes.
sorry, okay, I'll record that as well. Thank you. John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Tyler Tarasi,
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassi, yes.
Isabella McKinnon,
Isabella McKinnon, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Hey, Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Amy Ingalls,
Amy Ingalls, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Nate Ryan,
Nate Ryan, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Here we go. Darlene Wynn, yes, sorry.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
This motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the SFY 2026 proposed operating budget, and it says Brian Kane, but it's actually Eric Barassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I will give an overview, and then if there are any questions, I will direct them to Haral or Tegan. The Administration and Finance Committee met on May 29th, and we discussed and reviewed CTPS's proposed state fiscal year 2026 operating budget. The proposed budget covers the period from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. The total budget is $8.24 million, and that represents a 7% decrease from state fiscal year 2025. This reduction is primarily due to adjustments in anticipated federal competitive grant funding. On the revenue side, the 3C funds continue to be our core funding source, making up 80% of the budget, which is just over $6.6 million. The other funding includes contracts from MassDOT, MBTA, and a few discretionary grants. On the expense side, the budget supports approximately 60 full-time employees at CTPS, along with part-time and per diem staff. Although the salaries slightly decrease from the prior year's budget, there's they are 8% higher than actual state fiscal year 2025 spending, which reflects expected full staffing. The direct costs are $851,000, and they mostly cover IT infrastructure, consultant support for grant and modeling work, and public engagement and translation services. The administrative costs represent about 50% of the total budget and include employee benefits and training, IT services, rent, and general operations. Some key changes from state fiscal year 25. There are higher short-term disability premiums due to a new vendor, lower recruitment costs from ending contracts with search firms. Office relocation expenses have been removed from the budget pending the outcome of a request for proposals. The overhead rate, the provisional overhead rate for state fiscal year 2026 is 122.59%. That's up from 120.30%. This rate aligns with the current organizational size and core structure. So the recommendation before the board today, and the recommendation from the A&F committee is to approve the proposed state fiscal year 2026 CTPS operating budget at $8.24 million with a provisional overhead rate of 122.59%.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any questions from the MPO? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt the SFY 2026 operating budget as discussed today? And please state your name for the record when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I will make the motion to approve the CTPS state fiscal year 2026 proposed operating budget.
Lynn Diggins.
Len Diggins, Advisory Council seconds.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Sterling David Muller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
Don Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Laura Gilmore,
Yes.
Tyler Terrassi,
Tyler Terrassi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Isabella McKinnon,
Isabella McKinnon, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Amy Ingalls,
Amy Ingalls, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Nate Ryan,
Nate Ryan, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is amendment number 12 to the 2025-2029 TIP. Ethan Lapointe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. My name is Ethan Lapointe. I'm the Transportation Improvement Program Manager with the Boston Region MPO. If we can go on to the next slide, this presentation here today is to cover Amendment 12 to the federal fiscal years 25-29 TIP. If we can go on the next slide, as Tegan mentioned earlier during the Executive Director's report, this amendment only addresses projects in federal fiscal year 2025 of the current TIP, but it does include changes to projects both within the transit program and the statewide highway programs. The statewide highway program changes largely addressed cost increases and any other changes, such as changes to funding sources on bridge projects, and the transit program changes reflect other cost and source changes for 4 projects for the Cape Ann Transportation Authority. If we can go on to the next slide, just starting off with some of the statewide highway projects. This first project is the superstructure replacement of Concord Road, Route 126, over the MBTA and CSX railroad line. Now, I would note that the cost of this project has increased further beyond what it was originally factored into for Amendment 11 of the federal fiscal years 2025-29 TIP. In Amendment 11, which has already been endorsed by this board, the project cost had increased from $12.22 million to $15.12 million. Amendment 12 is proposing that the cost of this project would increase further from $15.12 to $25.02 million. So a further increase of $5.34 million. This is due to increased cost of materials for construction, specifically regarding changes in design to select a more high-pressure reinforced treated concrete, and also some additional landscaping work that was selected in coordination with the Lincoln Conservation Commission as part of the project. So again, this is a further increase on this project beyond what was already included in a prior amendment. If we can go on to the next slide. The next two projects are new projects, or at least for this amendment, I should say. This is the superstructure replacement of Route 3, 16, and 2 over the MBTA Red Line in Cambridge. This is an increase in the project cost from $7.43 million to $6.63 million, sorry, to $10.63 million, mostly related to unit priced increases on structural steel, concrete, and also some additional work included in the project, such as a water main structure removal. The next project is in Marlborough. This is a bridge preservation of Elm Street over Interstate 495. As has previously come up in MPO meetings and the TIP committee meeting, this is an example of a project that is being proposed for removal from the federal fiscal year 2025 TIP because it is now being funded with state fair share amendment funding. And given that is a state funding source, it no longer needs to be reflected in the TIP. So the project is going to continue to advance, just now using that other funding source, and it will do so on its same schedule as well. The project was currently programmed in the TIP for $2.16 million. We can go on to the next slide, please. This should now take us into the transit program, starting off with two projects for vehicle replacement and also miscellaneous small capital purchases. For the small capital purchases, this line item is increasing from $394,000 to $574,000, largely just to reflect the latest small miscellaneous capital purchasing needs for the Cape Ann Transportation Authority. It's worth noting that this entire line item is fully funded with state RTA capital funds. The next line item is the revenue vehicle replacement project for the Cape Ann Transportation Authority, a portion of which is funded using regional target dollars that were flexed to FTA by the MPO. With that said, the cost increase on this project does not impact any allocation of MPO regional target funding. The cost of the project for federal fiscal year 2025 is increasing from $1.86 million to $3.3 million. This is a $1.44 million increase. And this is largely because the federally funded portion of the project is increasing based on the availability of state matching funding to support the project in federal fiscal year 2025. The project is currently funded across multiple federal fiscal years, not only in this TIP, but also the following 2026 to 30 TIP, which will take effect this fall. Specifically, federal fiscal year 2026 includes $600,000 of FTA Section 5307 and $1.2 million of RTA capital funding, which is why I mentioned earlier that there is further state matching funding available to this project that would allow for the usage of more federal funding. Federal fiscal year 2027, also for reference, includes $1.3 million of RTA capital funding and no federal funding in fiscal 27. If we can go on to the next slide. The next project for the Cape Ann Transportation Authority is the rehabilitation and renovation of their existing Gloucester facility. This is just a small budget increase of $1.47 to $1.54 million, largely to reflect the latest cost estimate and needs for the project. I'd also note that in addition to this cost increase, there's also a source change just to ensure that the balance of federal to state funding is an 80-20 split. Currently, there is a larger proportion of state funding on the project than there is federal funding. So the source change is just to make it an even 80-20 match to fully utilize the federal funding availability. And the next project is the automatic passenger counting and automatic vehicle location project for the Cape Ann Transportation Authority. The source of the funding is going to has been adjusted based on a cost increase of about $364,000 to reflect FTA Section 5307 funding that was flexed from the Boston Region MPO's Transit Transformation Program. The revised cost estimate for the project is consistent with the estimate that was included when this project first appeared in the Transit Transformation Program as part of Amendment 10 to the federal fiscal years 2025 to 29 TIP. This was that amendment that happened back in around March based on an availability of funding in federal fiscal year 2025, resulting from delays to other roadway projects in fiscal 25. Also note that the federal funding that is allocated to this project or this increase in funding, federal funding for federal fiscal year 2025 is being matched with further RTA capital funding in state fiscal year 2026, just based on additional notes from the Cape Ann Transportation Authority there. And if we can go on to the next slide, that is the totality of all of the projects included in this amendment. MPO staff are requesting that the board votes to release Amendment 12 for a 21-day public comment period, which will start this coming Monday on June 30th and conclude July 21st at 5 p.m. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ethan. Any questions for Ethan? Seeing and hearing none, can we get a motion? Oh, yeah. Can we get a motion in a second to release this tip amendment as presented today? Eric Barassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Barassa with MAPC. I make a motion to release Amendment 12 for a 21-day public comment period.
Thank you. Is there a second? Tyler Terrassi.
Tyler Terrassi will second that motion.
Thank you. Motion having been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Absolutely. David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
Don Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Laura Gilmore,
Yes.
Tyler Terrassi,
Tyler Terrassi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Isabella McKinnon,
Isabella McKinnon, yes.
This is Hannah. I'll take over for the rest of the meeting. Sorry I'm late.
not a problem. Welcome. Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kosis,
David Kozis, yes.
Amy Ingalls,
Amy Ingalls, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Nate Ryan,
Nate Ryan, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes. I have to drop off at 11 o'clock, but I hope to be back for the executive session.
noted. Thank you. Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff,
Steve Olenoff, yes.
this motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the release of the draft Vision Zero Action Plan. Ally Clayman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. I'm Ally Clayman. I'm the project manager for the Vision Zero Action Plan. Next slide, please. And next slide. So I wanted to start with the goals of this presentation and our discussion today. Today marks a huge milestone in our regional Vision Zero work. We've accomplished a lot in a very condensed timeline and presented a lot of information to you. And last week, we were able to post the draft Regional Vision Zero Action Plan and all of the supporting technical reports for your review. Accomplishing this was a team effort, and I want to call out the work of my colleagues at the MPO who contributed to this work in numerous ways, including developing the strategy, conducting engagement, and doing data analysis. Rebecca Morgan, Jen Kaplan, Shauna Rourke, Stella Jordan, Megan O'Connor, Gia Hong, Stephen Andrews, Rose McCarran, and Abby Harima, and our consultant team led by Casey Woodley at Cambridge Systematics. So thank you for your expertise and hard work over the past year of developing this plan. The draft Vision Zero plan that we have gives us a path forward. The Vision Zero Action Plan is a living document, and this draft plan is the first step in committing to zero and following data-based actions and approaches for decreasing deaths and serious injuries on our streets. So today, the goals are to recap, remind ourselves what's happened over the past 3 months, review and discuss some of the short-term key actions in the draft plan, and then ask you to vote to release the plan for a 30-day public review period. Next slide. In terms of the agenda, there are a couple project updates that I'll touch on. We'll review some of the actions in the plan. We'll talk about progress reporting, and then we'll talk about next steps and the public review period. Next slide. So just a reminder of our overall schedule and where we are right now. We started this work in 2024. We spent the first half of 2025 really doing all the steps to develop the draft action plan that you'll vote on today. And just to recap the last 3 months, in April, we were focused on existing conditions data analysis, the high injury network, and stakeholder engagement. And we met with the board on April 17th to review a lot of that work. In May, staff was busy developing the high risk network and prioritizing the high injury network, finalizing the policy research and continued stakeholder engagement through focus groups, meetings with municipal staff, and interviews with state partners. And then this month, in June, we've reviewed all of the work we did in May with you at the last meeting on June 5th. We compiled the draft action plan and technical appendices. We've continued meeting with municipal staff to get input on our corridor prioritization. And that brings us to today and our review of the draft plan. After the 30-day public review period, we'll come back to talk about the input we receive on the plan and for you to endorse the final action plan. Next slide. So before we get into the rest of the presentation, I wanted to just touch on the fact that over the past 3 days, MPO staff, board members, and the Vision Zero Task Force had the opportunity to work with safe system experts from the international nonprofit IRAP, the International Road Assessment Program that Tegan mentioned. This series of safe systems workshops was part of the scope for our SS4A grant, and it was aimed at deepening our understanding of the safe system approach. So on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, we had workshops where we discussed Vision Zero best practices, goal setting, and key performance indicators. We braved the heat and did a site assessment yesterday at Josiah Quincy School near the State Transportation Building. We got to test IRAP road assessment tools on roads and intersections in the region to assess their level of safety. And we analyzed a couple of local crash sites. Overall, we discussed the importance of setting an end state and comparing that to current conditions and approaches to close the gaps. We plan to take these valuable tools and the insights we learned through these workshops and continue to refine and advance our Vision Zero strategy and planning ahead. There's a really great opportunity to have these workshops as we wrap up the draft action plan. So thank you to everyone who participated. Next slide. So transitioning to some project updates. Next slide. One of the deliverables that was posted for your review and that we finalized over the past month are municipal crash profiles. I just included some screenshots here. The full draft of these is posted as Appendix E to the draft action plan. These were prepared at this point for the top 20 municipalities based on crash number and crash rate. And each profile includes 1 page on crash and engagement data for the municipality, 1 page with the municipal prioritized high injury network and the 5 top scoring corridors, and 1 page with key best practice countermeasures to address the top crash causes in the municipality. Next slide. As we've developed the prioritized high injury network, another thing we've been doing is a lot of outreach to staff in municipalities with high priority corridors on the network. There were 25 municipalities total that we reached out to with high priority corridors. We've met so far with 14 of them in 6 different subregions. And we've talked to planning, engineering, DPW, and law enforcement departments. Next slide. The main topics covered at these meetings were getting feedback from municipal staff on the high priority corridors, getting their thoughts on the key crash causes in the municipality that the data point to and understanding how the data aligns with their work and experience, and then talking through some of the best practice countermeasures to address the top crash causes and thoughts on their feasibility locally. And the feedback we've gotten from these meetings is that the data analysis does correctly reflect local staff experience, and municipalities are interested in support coordinating with MassDOT, understanding and pursuing different funding sources, and having opportunities to pilot countermeasures and engage in peer learning. Next slide. All right, so I want to review a sample of the actions in the draft action plan. These are the actions that the MPO will be committing to and recommending municipalities commit to. The draft actions are a combination of the data analysis, the policy and process research, and stakeholder engagement. So the policy research recommendations that we reviewed at the last meeting on June 5th inform the policy and process actions in the draft plan. I'm going to highlight our approach to developing the list of actions we have. I'll give an overview of the actions and then talk through some of them in a bit more detail. Next slide. So as we put together the action list, we were focused on defining actions for the MPO and actions for municipalities, as I said. And for the MPO, we tried to think about what the next steps are that the MPO needs to take to move towards action plan implementation. And specifically, what are the next steps we can take to help municipalities move towards implementation? For municipalities, we tried to think about what are the top 3 to 5 actions in each emphasis area that we want to encourage municipalities to take over the next 5 years or so to improve roadway safety. Once we had the draft list of actions, we shared it with the task force at a meeting last week and incorporated some feedback from them. Next slide. So overall, we ended up with 54 total actions. They're somewhat evenly split in terms of action lead, with the MPO leading 29 and municipalities leading 25. Every action was grouped into 3 main categories. Many at this stage are in the process category. So these are things like further data analysis or location prioritization, as well as continued outreach and engagement and capacity building. And the remaining actions are split between policies and infrastructure changes. And then there are 4 timeframes for implementation, with the majority of actions falling into the short and medium-term timeframes, so within the first 5 years of the plan. 4 actions that we're saying are more long-term at this point, and 7 that we grouped as ongoing, so actions that would be done on a recurring schedule. There are a lot of actions, and I just want to give an overview of some of the short and medium-term ones in each emphasis area so that it's hopefully easy to get a sense of what we're recommending the MPO and municipalities commit to address safety in each emphasis area. Next slide. So some actions address more than one emphasis area. We call these cross-cutting actions. There are 6 short-term cross-cutting actions. 2 would be led by municipalities and 4 would be led by the MPO. The 2 actions that would be led by municipalities are infrastructure and policy actions, and include incorporating high injury and high risk network data and analysis into corridor reconstruction and maintenance projects, so that safety improvements and best practices can be integrated with every municipal project, and adopting a local Vision Zero policy and goal. The 4 cross-cutting actions led by the MPO are all process actions and include developing engaging messaging and educational materials to raise awareness about key crash causes and best practice interventions, transitioning the regional Vision Zero task force that we've had for plan development to a task force for plan implementation, working with municipalities, MassDOT, and public health stakeholders to involve public health professionals more in roadway safety efforts in the region, and coordinating with municipalities to explore the need for roadway safety educational materials to engage the business community more. Next slide. Next, there are 4 short-term actions that address speeding. 2 are policies that would be led by municipalities, These include adopting a 25 mile per hour speed limit in municipal-owned high-density and business districts, and establishing safety zones and school zones along municipal-owned roadway corridors to lower speed limits further to 20 miles per hour. And two are process actions that would be led by the MPO. These include expanding guidance and providing resources for municipalities to perform speed data collection more effectively, and developing and disseminating public awareness materials highlighting the dangers of speeding and the direct correlation between speed and crash severity. Next slide. There are two short-term large vehicle focused actions. These are both process actions. The first would be led by the MPO and is to develop educational materials that municipalities can use for awareness campaigns for commercial motor vehicle drivers on how to better share the roadway and improve safety. And the second would be led by municipalities and is to establish clearly defined and safely designed loading zones. Next slide. There's one short-term action related to older adults and older drivers. This would be led by the MPO, and the action is to use crash and risk data to prioritize locations to address the safety of older adult roadway users and to target messaging campaigns. Next slide. To address the safety of vulnerable road users, there are three short-term actions. All of these would be led by municipalities. They're a mix of infrastructure, policy, and process actions. They include using the Regional Active Transportation Plan to prioritize closing identified gaps in the bike and ped network aligned with the high injury and high risk networks, developing a policy requiring traffic control guidance and design to improve the safety for vulnerable road users traveling through work zones, and participating in MassDOT Safe Routes to School program and encouraging community groups and others to become a Massachusetts Safe Routes to School Alliance member. Next slide. For the intersection emphasis area, there are no short-term actions that we're calling right now. So these are all the medium-term intersection actions. There are 6 of them. They would all be led by municipalities. 4 of them are infrastructure actions and 2 are policy actions. The infrastructure actions include improving crosswalk visibility by installing high visibility crosswalks or raised crosswalks at high volume intersection crossings, installing pavement markings and physical delineation near crosswalks and intersections to improve sight lines, so daylighting intersections, installing no turn on red signage at signalized intersections on the high injury and high risk network, and coordinating with the MBTA to improve safety at grade rail crossings along the high injury and high risk networks. And the policy actions include developing and implementing a traffic safety signal policy and prioritization framework, and adopting citywide no turn on red policies. Next slide. And finally, there's one short-term lane departure action. This would be led by the MPO, and it's to use the high injury and high risk network to develop a list of top locations for roadway departure crashes and roadway departure crash risk. Next slide. I want to touch on our proposed approach to tracking progress of the plan. Next slide. Overall, we plan to report annually, and we plan to track a combination of regional crash metrics, as well as reporting on the MPO-led actions. In the box to the right, you can see the metrics we're proposing to track, including the number and rate of fatal crashes, the number of fatalities, the number and rate of serious injury crashes, the number of serious injuries, and then the percent change in fatal and serious injury crashes in each emphasis area. Next slide. And next slide. So in terms of next steps, tonight at 6 p.m., there's a virtual public forum to announce and discuss the draft plan and the public review period. Please feel free to share this link and help us get last-minute registrations for that meeting. The public review period would run from today through July 27th. And we'd appreciate the board's help spreading the word about the plan, how to comment on it, as well as reaching out with your own comments. And then we plan to come back to the board in the September timeframe to review input we get during public review and for your endorsement of the final plan. Next slide. So as we pause for discussion, here are a couple of questions that we'd like the board's feedback on. What are the most important next steps for starting implementation after the plan is adopted? And do you have any suggestions for getting stakeholder input during the public comment period? And next slide. So today's requested action is a board vote to release the draft Vision Zero action plan for a 30-day public review period. And that would run from today through July 27th at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Ally. Any questions for Ally or discussion? Eric Barassa.
Ally, thank you for the presentation and thank you for the great work managing this over the past year plus and all the staff who were involved. Really great effort and we also enjoyed supporting this and Travis Pollock on my team. Just want to say thank you to him for his role. I know he's not here today, but one thing, Ally, I think what would be great to do in terms of as we move to implementation is to think about doing like a roadshow of presentations. I know we've gone to the subregions, I think, through the process, but I think it'd be great to come back to everyone, kind of identify the high priority locations, kind of tailor some presentations like at the subregional level. We've got some great, great data, great visualizations in the report, and happy always to help with any of that. But I think because we had to, kind of expedite this process at the end, we need to get this in front of more people at the municipal level. So would love to help support that with the subregions and if there are other, forums to do that as well.
Thank you, Eric. Other comments, questions? Lynn Diggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, don't let anyone tell you that 9 indices is too many. Okay, it's an impressive listing of indices, and I'm looking forward to reading them all and the rest of the report. And because I haven't, maybe this question has been answered in the report, but I'm wondering, to what extent are you going to formally coordinate this process with MassDOT's State Highway Safety Plan or process?
Yeah, so the State Highway Safety Plan was, I guess the Strategic Highway Safety Plan was an input into all of our research. And, we've sort of constantly throughout this process been working as we do each step with Bonnie Poland and her team. We had a MassDOT representative on the task force, and I would assume that we would continue to have MassDOT representation on the implementation task force when we move into that part.
Okay, I just bring it up because it just seems like there's a really good opportunity for coordination, on a more formal level, that I think would help us achieve this goal and the state achieve its goal, and maybe even some efficiencies in the process. So that's the only reason I bring it up in this context, but you all are. I know that you're aware of things, and so I'm sure that you'll coordinate as best you can. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. John Strauss.
Thanks, John. I just had a quick question, Ally. On the surveys and work that you've done so far, have you had opportunities to coordinate with law enforcement in the municipality region as you go through the subregions and the particular towns? And the reason I ask is that if we want to make any kind of the steps, like getting a no right turn on red or a stop sign, we have to go through the law enforcement, and they have certain standards, which unfortunately I don't have in front of me right now. And they use these guidelines to ascertain whether or not they should put a sign or a signal at a particular intersection. So I was just curious if you've done any of that work.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a great point. We did have a law enforcement roundtable with municipal law enforcement. I know Malden is one that participated. I could get the rest of the list, but we had about, I think, 5 municipal law enforcement folks join that, and it was a great discussion. And we have the findings of that summarized in the engagement appendix. And yeah, I mean, I think going forward, similar to what I mentioned to Len, as we form a implementation task force for the plan, I would imagine we will want to try and get engagement from municipal law enforcement.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me adding, John, I just want to make sure that you're aware too that we did do outreach through the Municipal Police Training Committee and asked them to send information communications about the project through their email blast chain. So we have been in contact with them, but definitely we can't implement this plan without them. So definitely we'll plan to do more outreach to law enforcement going forward.
Just not to be a pain in the neck, but have you heard anything back from them?
All we heard was what, sorry, Allie, go ahead.
From municipal law enforcement?
Yeah, regarding.
Yeah, well, a small number. We had the roundtable with them, and I think there were 5 local police officers that joined. So it was a good conversation and sort of the beginning of, engagement with law enforcement. But yeah, it was great to get that attendance at that roundtable conversation.
And were they supportive of all this, or were they sort of like, we have to look and wait and see, or look at our own operations, or what was your impression of their remarks?
No, generally, I'm very supportive, I would say, across the board, recognizing the challenges with unsafe driving behaviors and, and talking about just some of the trade-offs with road design and more enforcement and wanting to continue the discussion. There was, conversation around how some municipalities are doing certain things and in terms of physical traffic calming and wanting to have more conversations and sort of peer learning to learn from what other municipalities are doing that it is helping slow vehicles and helping with enforcement and their job.
Good, thank you.
And for the record, that was Casey Woodley of Cambridge Systematics, who's a consultant on the team. And also for the record, please don't unmute yourself unless I call on you. Nathaniel Ryan.
Yeah, I just had a suggestion and then a question. Suggestion would be, I think a great community meeting space would be bike shops to get more engagement. And then the question would be, can municipalities put up flyers on your behalf around town? Do you have any materials to share?
Yeah, that would be great. We do have some materials. I can coordinate with our engagement staff, Sean and Stella, and get those shared with people.
Great, thank you.
Any other MPO comments before I take comments from the public? Seeing none. Charlotte Fleetwood.
Hi, thank you very much. Just wanted to thank Allie and team and all the task force members. It was a really valuable process, and I learned a lot about the differences between doing crash analysis in a city like ours in Boston, where we have unfortunately, enough crashes to do separate high injury networks for, by mode, but also learned that it's valuable to look at where all modes, where there's clusters of crashes that involve, adding up the modes. So that's something new that we're going to do based on this, as well as the systemic safety review, which is more proactive, and it's something that we've thought about doing for a long time. But now, we're inspired by MassDOT's work on this. Bonnie Poland, always kudos to Bonnie, and your work through this task force to do a systemic safety review. So we're going to take that review and use it as inspiration and input for doing a little bit of a deeper dive in Boston. But I just want to thank you for doing this work.
Thank you. Any other comments? Jinro?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, definitely echoing Charlotte's appreciation for this process. I've also had the opportunity to attend some of the events and have found them very valuable. Really appreciate the team pulling together the workshop with IRAP over the past few days. A number of folks from Boston attended, and it was great to connect with others in the region doing this work. I have so I guess maybe kind of seconding the suggestion about like getting some materials. In Boston, we have a bunch of open streets events coming up. Would love to kind of bring some of that material, and I know that MPO staff is also planning to attend some of these as well. But there's lots going on in the summer, so can't go everywhere. So good to kind of spread information that way. A question I had, I guess maybe two questions. One, it sounds like the best way, we can provide comment via formal letters and whatnot. But I was curious if there was anything in particular that would be helpful or that you'd like members to focus on in our review, because it's quite a body of work, which is great. And then the second is I know that, and we can probably discuss this more in the executive session about the kind of constraints of the timeline. And I was curious if there was additional funding available due to that, and if there were conversations going on how to use some of that.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. I think in terms of directing your review, a lot of what was posted on the meeting calendar were the technical appendices that that board has actually already seen and we've reviewed together. So I would say probably start with the executive summary, the action plan itself, any feedback on the actions or the plan in general. And then there's also going to be a tool up on the website, an interactive tool, similar to what the task force and municipalities have seen before. Just a final version showing the crashes, the high injury network, the high risk. So those would be good things to focus in on, I think.
Hagan?
I just raised my hand to support on the funding side of the question. Jen, I think what you asked is, how are we going to continue this work? Is there funding dedicated to it as we close out this current federal contract at the end of this month? We are being really creative with that and working with MassDOT as partners on figuring out how we can extend either available MassDOT matching funds or deobligated PL funds that were originally intended for other purposes that haven't been able to be used. And as you know, until we can confirm that we can sign the federal contracts that contain terms and conditions that are under litigation, or there's a ruling against being able to include those terms and conditions, what we can't do is depend on the large grant that we've already awarded to continue this work. They've already been awarded, nor, as I mentioned, we're applying for another grant, but it's still dependent on whether or not we are signing those contracts based on the litigation that's ongoing. In addition, we've been talking internally about how we shift towards prioritizing this work and folding it into our ongoing budget. It just means that, meaning the PL fund, sort of kind of core PL funded budget that we have, but it does mean that it would move not quite as aggressively as we would love it to with the additional funding through those grant sources. So I'm happy to answer more questions about that if possible, but we've been very active and MassDOT's been with us very active in trying to figure out what we can do to supplement the funds after June 30th.
Any other questions on this issue? Seeing none, can I get a motion and a second to release the draft Vision Zero action plan for a 30-day public review process? And please state your name for the record when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, MAPC. I'll make a motion to release the draft Vision Zero plan for a public review comment.
Thank you. Jen Rowe.
Monroe City of Boston, I'll second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Sure thing. David Moeller.
Yes.
Do we have John Bouchard? John Bouchard messaged earlier on. Next to John Romano.
John Romano, yes.
Thank you. Laura Gilmore.
Yes.
Tyler Tarasi.
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannes Witkowski.
Hannes Witkowski, yes.
Glenn Diggins.
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe.
Monroe, yes.
Matt Moran.
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty.
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis.
David Kozis, yes.
Amy Ingalls.
Amy Ingalls, yes.
Tom Bent.
Tom Bent, yes.
Nate Ryan.
Nate Ryan, yes.
John Strauss.
Sorry, John Strauss, yes.
Thank you. And I'm going to do a search. Lean is away momentarily for a moment. Rachel Benson.
Rachel Benson, yes.
And Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
This motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an update on our public outreach quarterly engagement. Aaron McGuire and Stella Jordan, whenever you guys are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can kick us off. So hi, everyone. My name is Stella Jordan. I'm the Public Engagement Program Manager at the Boston Region MPO. I'm really excited to share an update on the engagement work that we've been doing over the past few months. If we can go on to the next slide, please. So just to provide some background on where this update is coming from, this update really continues the series of regular updates that we've brought to the board over the past year. Those previous updates can be found on the public engagement webpage, but essentially what our goal has been with these updates is to come regularly to the board and share updates on data that we've been collecting through our public engagement activities, including analyses on the geographic distribution of our engagement activities and the comments that we receive, the high-level themes and trends that we're hearing in public input, how themes are distributed across our region's municipalities and where certain themes are more prevalent, and how themes and trends are changing over time as we collect more data. So goals really for these updates are to provide you, the board, with useful information that can be applied to your discussions and decisions across all of our work, but particularly around the development of the next long-range plan. My colleague, Aaron McGuire, who's leading the development of the LRTP, will be discussing that connection in more detail towards the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. And just to tee up that connection, we have a few questions for you to keep in mind and consider as we go through this presentation. Wanted to mention them at the top as well. So first, how can this engagement data be applied to decision-making? In what areas do you see it being useful? How can we as staff better help you connect public input to your decisions? How can we close the loop after decisions are made to illustrate the impacts of public input? We really want to make sure that we continue to bring stakeholders and the public along and build trust and transparency in our process by ensuring that folks can see the results when they engage with us. And then finally, what additional data and analyses would be helpful for you? What information do you want to see from the public? And what questions should we be asking, as I discussed on the previous slide? So how can we more equitably consider input from communities throughout the region? Essentially, we don't need to answer these questions today. We'd like to continue considering them as we prepare to delve into the long-range planning process more actively. But I just wanted to sort of set the stage with those as we go into this. Next slide, please. Since the last update we gave, as Tegan previewed at the beginning of this meeting, we've launched a new digital engagement platform specifically structured around the LRTP, providing public information about LRTP development and easy, accessible, and interactive engagement activities. Next slide, please. And that's a preview of the site there. We're currently collecting input through 2 activities on this engagement platform. An interactive map where people can pinpoint specific locations and leave comments about concerns and ideas for improvement across a variety of transportation categories. And an open discussion forum where people can submit comments and interact with comments left by others. During the collection period covered in this update, which is about a month, we received 700 contributions to the mapping activity and over 900 contributions to the comment forum. This is a really great response for only the first month of the platform being open, and we will continue to provide more updates as we collect more data and evolve some of the activities and questions that we've been asking. You can check out the site for yourself at this link that I will drop into the chat. And just a note, this update today will focus on the themes submitted by users of the LRTP engagement platform and how those themes are distributed across our region. But you can explore the map and look at the specific comment submissions on your own by visiting the site. Next slide, please. And another new tool that we're really excited to share with you today is a new engagement dashboard. So this is different about this update compared to the previous updates we have brought you, which are in a slightly different format. Today, what we're doing is sort of piloting a new format for analyzing and visualizing all of this data in one unified location. This dashboard is public and it can be viewed online at the link that I will now drop in the chat. It's also linked in the agenda for today's meeting. And again, we encourage you to explore this on your own time as well. Next slide, please. So to go through what this dashboard actually includes, it includes tables of individual comments that we receive through our regular engagement activities. That includes meetings, events, emailed comments, etc. So you can see the source of much of our analysis. Right now, the tables only include comments from these sources. Comments from the LRTP engagement platform can be viewed directly on that platform, but in the future, we will explore ways to combine this data. This dashboard also includes analysis of prevalent comment themes from both the general comments and the LRTP engagement platform through a variety of lenses. So the most prevalent themes overall, region-wide, as well as within each municipality. How comments we've gotten from the LRTP engagement platform's discussion forum relate to LRTP goal areas, and how prevalent themes across the region have changed over time. So we've also included data from our previous public engagement updates that we've brought you within this dashboard as well, so that you can sort of compare changes over time between that data and the data that we've brought to you in this current update. Additionally, this dashboard includes the table of comments that we received during the development of the FFY's 2026-30 TIP and a map depicting the regional target funded projects programmed in this TIP. Before we spend some time going over the content of our analyses in more detail, I just want to mention that this update is essentially a pilot of the dashboard as a new platform for viewing these data and analyses. So we certainly do expect some of this to change over time as we continue to update the dashboard and as we explore new tools and functionalities. For example, in future updates, we would like to link the dashboard comment tables to the maps directly for a more comprehensive and interactive spatial analysis. But if there are data or analyses that you feel would be helpful that aren't currently included, we would really love to hear that feedback, either during our discussion today or in future discussions. Also, you can always reach out to us offline. We'd be happy to chat more. Next slide, please. So to zoom in on the content of this dashboard, and specifically the new content we're presenting that builds on previous engagement updates, this particular update spans from December 2024 to April 2025. It includes input received through public comments between December 2024 and March 2025 from a variety of standard MPO engagement inputs, including in-person events, meetings with community-based organizations, advocates, and other stakeholders, and community and stakeholder meetings attended by staff, as well as the MPO's digital comment forms and email. It also includes input received through the new LRTP engagement platform, specifically from March through April of 2025, the first month of that platform being live. And as mentioned previously, the LRTP engagement platform is a great tool in itself for viewing public input. So we definitely encourage you to check it out. Since it already contains so much data on its own, we didn't want to duplicate everything within this dashboard. So instead, the content in the dashboard that draws from the platform is really focused on higher level thematic analyses for now. And finally, as I mentioned, this update also includes data regarding the FFYS 2026 to 30 tip, which for now is presented separately from our other comment tables and analyses. Next slide, please. So on the analysis, we'll primarily be focusing during this presentation on the new data from the LRTP engagement platform, both for the purposes of time today and because we had so much more data to work with compared to the general comments we received during the time frame covered in this update. So we analyzed the contributions to the interactive map on that platform by theme, and we then explored which themes were most prevalent in each municipality based on the location of the initial map contributions. There are a range of themes across these contributions, and many municipalities had 2 or more themes that tied for prevalence. This map only depicts the single most top prevalent theme in each municipality. Comments about bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and safety were prevalent across the region, and particularly in the inner core. We also received many comments about public transit, and many of these came from municipalities outside of the inner core relating to service improvements and destination access and connectivity. Next slide, please. So to contextualize those top themes a bit further, we also looked at the prevalence of themes from all of the comments across the region and found that of the 700 contributions to the LRTP engagement platform interactive map that we analyzed, nearly half were related to bicycle and pedestrian topics. There's definitely overlap across these thematic categories, though. These categories are actually self-selected by the commenter, so many of the bicycle and pedestrian comments also relate to safety and to roads, for example. Next slide, please. So just to provide a little bit more detail on the top 4 most prevalent themes that we saw across the region. As I mentioned, bicycle and pedestrian related comments had strong overlap with other theme areas. Most were related to safety concerns and infrastructure improvements, and many were about very specific locations where contributors wanted to share input. For public transit, many of the comments were related to improving or expanding transit service throughout the region. Comments touched on bus, rapid transit, and commuter rail service. And commenters highlighted improvements and expansions for both existing services and in areas that are currently lacking, such as suburban towns outside of the inner core, where RTA service and connectivity was also highlighted, and also in denser urban communities that are currently underserved. For roads and highways, comments largely noted existing safety issues, particularly around highway interchanges and problematic intersections, and discussed opportunities for reducing VMT and reconstructing roadways to improve safety for all users. Many of these comments, both for roads and for safety, noted particular safety concerns and needed infrastructure improvements and accommodations for people walking and biking and other vulnerable road users. Next slide, please. Another way to look at some of the nuance within these broad theme categories and to illustrate the overlap between themes, we generated word clouds for 2 of the most prevalent region-wide themes, bicycle and pedestrian issues and safety. And within the comments about each of these themes, many of the same keywords are used. So in the word cloud images, the larger the word appears, the more frequently it was used in the comments related to each theme. And across these two, we see a lot of overlap, such as intersection and street design related words, as well as bicycle and pedestrian related words. Next slide, please. So another thing we wanted to analyze was where themes are most prevalent for certain communities. I'll preface this by saying that this is analysis we're still improving upon. We want to bring more metrics and more nuance into future updates, but I think what's important here is that just looking at prevalent themes from engagement in the aggregate or even by municipality doesn't give us a full picture. So it's also important to understand who we're hearing from and where priorities are in the context of the communities in our region that we know don't always hear from enough, communities who have been historically underrepresented in our planning process and face barriers to engaging, and those who have been disproportionately impacted by planning outcomes. So this analysis uses the same data from the LRTP engagement platform as the previous analyses I discussed, but here we're looking at the most prevalent themes specifically within census tracts where the percentage of low-income households is higher than the regional average. We did see a fairly similar breakdown of themes as we did by municipality, with a lot of bicycle and pedestrian related comments still, but this tells us a little bit more about where some priorities like public transit, for example, are coming up in the inner core in particular, which maybe didn't rise to the top in our municipal analysis. As I mentioned, we do want to get more sophisticated with this type of analysis going forward. So for now, this doesn't necessarily tell us what low-income communities are actually saying. We didn't collect demographic data from LRTP engagement platform respondents, but it is a way to get at what needs and priorities we're starting to see within some of our region's low-income communities. In the future, we could tie in previous comments we've collected in these communities and do more targeted data collection to hear directly from community members, as well as do additional engagement and ground truthing around these themes as well. So we definitely want to continue to evolve our analysis and bring you not just what we're hearing at a high level and thematically, but really start to dig in more to what we're hearing, what we're hearing from and within specific communities, and particularly those communities that we know are currently underrepresented in our planning process. Again, we really want these tools and analyses to be as useful to you as decision makers as possible. So in acknowledging that this is in many ways a first pass at bringing you some new information, we'd really love to hear your suggestions for what we can improve upon in future updates. But now I'd like to pass it over to Erin, who's going to talk a little bit more about how we've been considering connections between this data and the development of the long-range plan in particular.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin McGuire. I am leading the development of the MPO's next long-range plan. If we could go to the next slide, please. As Stella had mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, one of the central goals here is to provide a recurring space for you as board members to engage with and reflect on the different priorities that we are hearing from our public stakeholders. One of the most fundamental ways to do this, and that we can align with our current planning practices, is to compare the categories that participants self-selected on the website with our long-range plan goal areas. As you can see on this slide, safety represents about a quarter of all of the comments that we received from about 980 total comments. These comments ranged from suggestions on policy changes, such as speed limit caps on local roadways, public awareness of roadway safety, and many intersection level strategies that we heard from earlier from our presentation from Allie Clayman. If we could move to our next slide. As we continue to progress in the development of our next long-range plan, which will be ramping up in the coming months, we're going to be continuing to refine our engagement methods, activities, and specifically questions. With the engagement platform, we're going to be piloting some new questions and opportunities to really gauge where public priorities lie. We are going to continue participating in and holding events and activities, particularly with communities that we have not heard from as much. The questions that we have been asking for most of our engagement activities so far related to the long-range plan have been fairly broad, and we understand that it can be kind of hard to connect these high-level themes with more specific decision-making points that you're going to be asked to encounter. So we think that this might be a good first step to better incorporate public input into the decisions that we make. We welcome your feedback into ways that we can improve this. And as we move forward into the next long-range plan development and start thinking about some specific applications such as scenario planning, performance measures, or investment programs, we will continue to refine the questions and the engagement strategies that we are asking. Next question, or next slide, please. To wrap up, we have a couple of questions brought back from the start of this presentation. We would love to hear some feedback from you all. To repeat, they are: how can this engagement data be applied to our MPO decision-making practices? How can we close the loop after decisions are made to illustrate the impacts of public input? And what additional pieces of data and analysis would be helpful to you as decision makers to make these connections? With that, thank you.
Thank you both. Questions, comments from MPO members? Laura Gilmore.
Yeah, thank you. This is really really interesting and really great information that you're putting together. I really appreciate the effort to show show a visual representation of the data, as well as just to get some more information out about the sort of feedback that you're receiving. I have one just technical question and then a broader comment question about engagement. From a technical perspective, I'm trying to take a look at the portal that the dashboard that you sent out, and I'm just curious if there are certain browsers that it is better or worse with. I'm not getting a lot of luck with it right now, and it may just be that we are all looking at it at the same time, but just curious if there's, any technical details about how best to view that information.
It would be best to view it on a browser. I'm also trying to access it right now. I think it is a matter of just everyone going to the same link at the same time.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was like it's happier with certain ones than others, but I'll try to take a look at it later to get a better sense. But then, more specifically to the MBTA, I think you all know, in addition to CTPS working on your long-range transportation plan, the T and MassDOT are also just about to kick off the program for mass transportation, which is the T's long-range plan. And so, I'm also just excited to take a closer look at this data, see what sort of feedback you all have been getting, and try to figure out how we can leverage, the data that you're receiving in our plan as well. So would love to connect offline about, getting access to the more specific comments you've been receiving and making sure that, the feedback you're getting on transit service within our service area is also getting to the right points within the T.
Thank you, Laura. Can you go put the discussion slide back up, please? Amy Ingalls.
Hi, thank you. I had a question about engagement, some kind of constructive criticism that we've gotten back on the local level. We just finished wrapping up our Vision Zero action plan. The criticism was kind of that it seemed to some that a lot of the input that we got was kind of skewed towards your regular customers when it comes to some of these conversations. Folks who are kind of looking to be advocates for bicycle, pedestrian, transit, stuff like that. Whether that is the case or not, I think the point of that criticism was to try to get to as many people as possible, and some folks who maybe aren't looking out for that kind of engagement necessarily. So I guess my question is if you guys had any, since this is supposed to be reaching out to everyone and hearing from folks that might not regularly participate, like if you had any strategies for doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. That's a really great question. It's something we think about a lot too. It's really hard to reach everyone that you want to reach. And I think in planning, we're always going to have people who are really interested and more plugged in than others. I think for us, what we've been trying to think about is both how we can be a little bit more aggressive and targeted in getting out to reach the communities that we know we aren't hearing from. So when we talked about that a little bit earlier in this presentation, that's really grounded in a lot of ongoing work that we do in the engagement program throughout the year to to kind of regularly assess like where the gaps are in who we're hearing from. And we know that we're not, we hear less on average from certain communities like low income communities, for example, which is why I brought that analysis in today. And so knowing that, figuring out ways that we can really be intentional about going and doing engagement in those communities. And what we found at a high level is that it's often much more effective to go to folks who are not engaging as much rather than ask them to come to us. So we know that things like this online platform are really great, but they don't work for everyone. And so we always need to find ways to supplement that and collect input in ways that, meets people where they are and works for people. And then kind of the challenge is bringing that together. And I think, the exciting thing about things like this dashboard that we're bringing today is that they allow us to sort of start looking at what priorities we're hearing from certain communities and from other communities, right? And so as we collect more data and as we collect more targeted data, we can start to sort of pull out like where we're hearing certain things from people that we always hear from, and then where we're hearing other things from people that we don't always hear from. And so hoping that we can continue to kind of refine that as I discussed. We're not all the way there yet. It's really tough working with this type of data and sort of trying to quantify very qualitative data, but I think that's sort of the path that we've been going down and hoping to sort of continue to figure out ways that we can sort of best elevate and prioritize to make this useful.
Other questions or comments? General.
Yeah, keep this brief, but just wanted to, thank you for this update. I think really impressed, as I've mentioned before, on like the gap analysis and being really candid about that. And to thank you and other members from the engagement team who are going to come present to some City of Boston engagement community of practice folks about some of this methodology later on. So thank you, and look forward to seeing more.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, great update, guys. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is member items. Are there any? Seeing none, next item on our agenda is executive session. The MPO is going to take a vote to go into executive session to discuss a litigation issue. We were asked to have this executive session probably about a month ago now, by various MPO members to have a group discussion on ongoing litigation. I think I need to let people know in the public that we will not be back after this executive session. So I need a motion and a second to go into executive session and to adjourn the public part of our meeting. Can I get that motion, please? And please state your name for the record. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, MAPC. I make a motion to enter into executive session and to adjourn the public portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? Jinro, I'm sorry.
No, you can. I'll second that motion, and I did just think of one short members item, which is folks at NACTO gave us a heads up that the Bridge Investment Program applications are open and due in about a month. So if anyone is interested in that.
Motion having been made and seconded, please call the roll.
Certainly, starting with David Mola,
Yes.
John Bouchard, John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Laura Gilmore,
Laura Gilmore, yes. And I'd also like to ask that we include Mike Malia from the T, who has joined this call as well.
thank you. Tyler Tarasi,
Tyler Tarasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Hannah Switlikowski, yes.
Len Diggins,
Dickens, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
I think Matt had to step away.
Roger, thank you, Jen. Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Amy Ingalls,
Amy Ingalls, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Nate Ryan,
Ryan, yes.
thank you, and don't think Dennis Giambetti here is here yet. Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
John Strauss,
John Strauss, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
This motion for the executive session carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask everyone who is not a voting member of the MPO or a required staff participant to please leave the meeting now so we can go into executive session. I also need all of you who are supposed to be in executive session to raise your hands so staff can confirm that before we start the session, the only people in the meeting are people who are supposed to be in the meeting. Thank you all so much. And staff, let me know when we're ready to actually start the executive session.